Hi, I'm Ben Sheeran, and in this short video I'd like to give you an overview of the Fluency course. So what is in the course, who it's for, and a little bit about how we approach using it. So the course is comprised of 3 levels, so level 1, level 2 and level 3, and each level has 2 books, as you can see. Each book has 24 units. So together you have 48 units of work for the year. Most English schools, I believe, have between 40 and probably 48 classes a year. So this should cover you, regardless of how long your calendar is. Our school here, we have 44 classes a year, so we end up skipping 4 of the units from the Fluency course. And that's fine. So the units are all independent. They're not connected in any way. So you don't have to do all the units. You can skip units as you go if you need to. Also, you don't need to use both books. I can imagine lots of situations where a school might choose to just use one book and maybe stretch out those 24 units. Maybe do 1 unit over 2 lessons instead of doing 1 unit per lesson. And that's fine. The books are designed to be modular in a lot of ways. You could break up the activities within units, skip some, use some, spend more time on others. And it's pretty customizable if you're an experienced teacher and you want to adapt it to use alongside other materials and so on. So let's take a look at level 1. And level 1 is obviously the first level of the course, and it's designed for ordinary junior high school students. So it's going to be too easy for very advanced students, for returnees, and so on. But for a normal student who's done English for a few years, is going to junior high school, this should be a pretty good fit, in my experience. In order to do the course, students are going to need very rudimentary reading skills. So if students can't read anything, if they've got no phonics and no sight word ability, they're going to struggle a lot with the course. So I think if you're planning to use the Fluency course in a junior high school, for example, you might want to wait a couple of months until the students have a chance to learn some basic phonics, learn some words, learn to read a bit, and then you can jump in. So maybe start in May or June instead of starting in April. If you have students who are experienced, who've done English for a couple of years, they should be fine jumping in straight into the first book. Book 1A is unique in the series in that the first month, so the first 4 units, are easier. We deliberately made them even easier than the rest of the book in order to give students a very easy start, to let them ease into the activities. The Fluency course is pretty much structured the same every week. So every class is very similar in terms of the activities and the flow of the class. So that first month is really a chance to teach the students how the course works and what they're expected to do in class. And accordingly, we made the texts shorter and easier to make that process a little bit more smooth. Textbook 1A, the first 4 months, so the first 16 units are, well, the first month, the first 4 units are easy. Very easy. So they're very short. The texts are 45 words long, for example, and it's pretty simple to start with. The next 3 months, so the next 12 units, these are easy. So the texts are 60 words long, and the content is getting a little bit harder, but not very. And then after those first 4 months, we have the first jump. So the texts get longer. They become 80 words long. And the questions get a little bit more complex, maybe. So it's not a huge jump, but there is a leveling up after 4 months. And then the final 8 units of the textbook 1A are in that pattern. And then the first first 2 months, the first 8 units of textbook 1B are the same. And then we level up again, so the texts become 100 words long at this point, and so on. So the kind of philosophy to this course is that we are leveling up slowly, so that the students are becoming able to handle longer texts and more complicated grammar in their reading and writing and so on. But we do it gradually, so it's not a huge shock to the system. And most students actually don't notice the text got longer, so it's kind of interesting like that. So that's level 1. So designed for junior high school first year students. It's roughly based on the junior high school curriculum. So we went through the junior high school textbooks and pulled out, the kind of grammar and some of the vocabulary they used. But we also increased it. So there's a huge amount of content in these books. Each book is 200 and some pages, 230, 40 pages. So it's a huge amount of input as well, much more than they're getting from their school books. Now, level 2. Level 2 is designed for students who finished level 1. Go figure. I think it might be a bit challenging for normal kind of junior high school second years to jump straight into level 2 without doing level 1. So level 1 has built up their skills to allow them to do level 2. If I was starting with a new class of second years who hadn't done the first level, I might be tempted to start with book 1B, for example, and maybe transition them to book 2A after that, or even book 2B, but to give them a chance to kind of hit the ground running. Oh, kind of forgot this. The topic of level 1 is students' everyday lives. So the students learn to talk about themselves, their families, their clubs, their schools, their interests, and so on. And all the texts are basically about kind of junior high school life. They're based on situations that junior high school students would be familiar with. So that was the key there. It's kind of like my life was the kind of overall theme for this. Now, level 2, you can probably guess by the cover, the theme for level 2 is Japan. So throughout the course, we're going to be reading about Japan, different areas of Japan, the culture, the food, the history, kind of special places and so on. And the reason we went with this is because, first, it's familiar. So the students have heard of most of the stuff that's in this textbook. They might not be super familiar with it, but they've heard of it at least. So that makes it much easier for them to read a text about something that they roughly know about already. And the other reason is that, if students are going to talk to someone who is not from Japan, who doesn't live in Japan, a lot of the conversation is probably going to be talking about Japan. People are going to ask, tell me about your country, what's Japan like? I heard that, this is a thing. And I think having gone through this kind of textbook where they're learning about Japan in English, that's going to really facilitate that kind of conversation. So that's why we put that in here. I think that's it for level 2. So basically it's a level up and the topic, the contents change to Japan. The texts are much longer. So again, we have 4 months, 4 months, 4 months in terms of difficulty. The first level is 100 word length texts, and then 120 words, and then 140 words for the final level, the second half of textbook 2B. Level 3. This is my favorite level, I have to admit. I think this one is the most interesting to teach and probably the most interesting to learn. It's pretty challenging. I would say if students haven't done level 2 before this, it's going to be very, very challenging. In fact, I would recommend it for use with high school students or even low-level university students at this point. Even for students who've gone through the entire course, levels 1 and 2, going into level 3 is a bit of a shock, kind of deliberately. While level 1, level 2 feel quite similar in terms of the activities that students are doing, level 3 is very different. So deliberately, we change the activities and we change the feel of the book to make it feel special and different. Level 3 is much harder. The texts are 250 words long, for example. And the topics, we're talking about the world this time. So we start off with Asia, and then we go through Europe and Africa, and then in the second book, we look at Europe and North America, South America. So it's going around the world, picking up countries. So each week, we do a different region or country, and the first text, there's 2 texts in each unit. The first text is a kind of description of the region, an introduction to the region. And the second text is talking about some kind of special thing about that, whether it's food, sport, culture, history, and so on. I think the topics are pretty interesting. The students seem to enjoy them. And this really is a fun level to work with. But again, pretty challenging to jump straight into. So make sure you check out the samples before deciding to use it. Now, the main parts of the course are these textbooks. There are also some supplementary materials. Importantly, for level 1, level 2, there's also a workbook that gives students extra kind of writing practice. And we decided to make 2 versions of the workbook. One version is going to be available from Amazon to buy, as a printed book. But we decided to also make it available offline so that you can download it and print the books yourselves if you want to save on the fees for that. In addition to the workbooks, we've also got Quizlet files. So we use Quizlet with our students. I'll make another video to explain that in more detail, but we use Quizlet. So there's a Quizlet set for each unit in the Fluency course. There are also worksheets and record sheets and answer sheets and so on, all available for free from the Fluency course website. So please do check that out if you're considering adopting the course. And that's it. So if you are interested in learning more about the Fluency course, the best thing is to go to the website to check out videos on this YouTube channel. And also you can get in touch with me. So if you have some questions, if you're not sure whether the Fluency course would be a good fit for you or your school or your students, please do get in touch and I'll be happy to try to explain in more detail.